So this is a very big week. There's a milestone happening this week, which I'm having some feelings about. I'm excited, but also it is making me realize how fast time flies. And what I'm talking about is this week is my 10-year wedding anniversary. Very exciting, very cool. I don't know how it happened so quick. And I did make a previous video about, the wedding planning process, the things that I wish I did or didn't do and how to budget for that. So make sure to check out that video. But it's a very exciting thing to have a wedding anniversary, but it gives you a lot of time to reflect. And one thing I really did not think about at all, because you're really focused on just wedding planning, is all of the things that you need to do when you are a newlywed. And I'm not just talking about, you need to, decorate the house or unpack all of your wedding gifts or send thank you notes. No. I'm talking about all the financial things that you need to do once you get married, because I feel like no one really talks about that. And it took me a while to figure out what I needed to do to make sure all my ducks were in a row. So that is what this video is going to be all about. Here are the top however many things you need to do once you get married. Okay, so the first thing that I would say that you need to do, and this isn't really financial, but it is tax related, is to go into your CRA My account and change your marital status. It's just great to get it out of the way before you forget, before tax season comes around. You're like, oh shoot, I forgot to change that. Make sure to change your marital status. It'll take you 2 seconds. The next thing that you should do is to make sure, and let's start with your workplace policies. If you have any insurance policies, benefits through your workplace, like life insurance, critical illness insurance, disability insurance, likely you probably named maybe a parent or someone else in your family as a beneficiary. You're going to want to update those to your spouse. The same thing goes for any private policies. Make sure to update your beneficiary to your spouse. The next thing that you're going to want to do is to also change your beneficiary to your spouse for your RRSP, and if you have a workplace pension or a group RRSP. Now, you can do the exact same thing, of course, for your TFSA and the FHSA, the brand new registered account, the first home savings account. Also made a video all about that, so make sure to check that out. But instead of naming a beneficiary, I'd probably suggest actually naming a successor holder. It's basically the same thing as beneficiary, but it can only be your spouse. And not to get too into the weeds about it, but in general, it's just more tax efficient. There's preferential tax treatment when you name your spouse as a successor holder as opposed to just a beneficiary. The next thing that you're going to want to do, and I tell you to do this right away, do not wait, because when you wait, I promise you, years will go by and you still haven't done it. Get a will. Make an estate plan. So many people think that you only have to make a will when you're older or have kids or have more money in the bank. That is not the case. If you want to make sure that your wishes and your assets get into the hands that you want them to, you need a will. Now, I also have a video about this. It's really comparing, one of those will online platforms called Willful with going with a lawyer. Lots of pros and cons. The first will that I got was through a lawyer. It was fine. It's great because I didn't really know what I was doing, and you can ask some questions, but in general, they just gave me a template that I had to fill out, similar to one of those kind of will kits, but it was significantly more expensive. And when we were newlyweds, honestly, it was a big chunk of change that we could afford, but it was tight. So honestly, I think a lot of people probably avoid getting a will just because of the cost using a lawyer. So instead, I would say if your situation is not very complex and likely it's very simple, then look into one of those kind of do-it-yourself will kits. Again, I actually am using Willful now with my husband because we needed to update our will. It is significantly less expensive, and you can name a power of attorney, and it really walks you through every single thing that you can possibly think of. So, check it out if you want to. But again, there's lots of other, will kits and things like that out there. So, take a look, see which one is the right one for you. So after all of that stuff is done, and honestly, I'd recommend doing all of that stuff first, or make that a priority, make them all a priority. But the natural next thing you need to figure out is, how are we going to manage our money moving forward? Should we keep things completely separate? And maybe for all of the bills, maybe you pay some of the bills and they pay some of the bills. Maybe, they pay all of the bills and then you pay them back, or something kind of system like that, whatever. But maybe you do want to do things more jointly, or a combination where some things are separate, some things are together, or maybe you want to combine everything. There is no right or wrong way to budget as a couple. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different comfort level. So never feel pressured to go completely joint. I think it's a very kind of personal thing to choose. So have a conversation with your partner about what makes the most sense for us. And very well, you can kind of do things slowly, everything's separate. And then maybe you have a joint account for certain things like your travel fund. And slowly over time, you may open other joint accounts, make things a little bit more joint. But you're definitely going to want to see where your partner's at, where you're at, what you want to do, and then have those conversations maybe every 6 months to see, do we need to change things, or are we cool with how things are? But with that, I would also encourage you to not just talk about money every 6 months. One of the best things that me and my husband ever did was to set up what we call monthly money meetings. So what that really just looks like is once a month, we use the budget spreadsheets that I have on my website, and we put in all of our expenses, what our spending was. We take a look at our budget, and we already crafted that, but we just put all of our, expenses in the spreadsheet, our assets and liabilities and the net worth kind of part of the spreadsheet. And then we have a discussion about, okay, how did we do? Is there some room for improvement here? Or, hey, we did really well with our spending this month. And we just, give us space once a month to have that conversation. We all are on the same page. We know what's going on with our money. It just gives us clarity and honestly less anxiety with our money. With those conversations, you should also have some chats about who is responsible for what. So with me and my husband, obviously I'm kind of the main money manager. Money kind of makes my husband a little bit anxious. He doesn't really love to do it, and I love doing it. So I'm happy to do it. With that said, we still share the responsibilities. So that's why for me, it's really important to have those monthly money meetings so he knows exactly what I'm doing, what credit cards I've been paying off, where I've moved some money here and there, so he doesn't feel like I'm just doing whatever. I want him to be in the know. The other thing too is both partners should know what's going on with the family finances, because if the worst happens and your spouse dies, you don't want to be left in the dark and not know, oh, he had this many bank accounts, or I didn't even know he banked with this bank. You want to know what's going on, what institutions you're using, what credit cards you have. You want to have all of that information. And that actually reminds me of another thing I would suggest. Using a password manager. So me and my husband use an app called 1Password. We've been using it for years and years and years. You can set up a family profile. So you can have your own personal passwords that they can't see if you don't want them to, but then also you can have kind of a family one where you share them. And so, if you have a joint bank account, you both can have that login. So no one is, has the login and you don't have the login. It's just a really easy way to organize all of your kind of financial accounts in one place, and also make sure to have really hard to crack passwords to kind of deter all of those cyber criminals out there. And the last thing I really want to share is, and kind of this is the fun part, quite honestly, is talking about your goals together. Now, I think it's always important to have your own personal goals, right? Maybe you want to go back to school and get your master's, and that's something that you want to pay for and you're going to be saving for personally. But likely as a couple, you're going to have some joint goals like buying a home together, getting a pet, going on a trip, what have you. So take some time once you're building your budget. And again, I would highly recommend some of my budget spreadsheets to kind of give you that template to help you with that. But have those conversations about what are we planning together? Have those conversations too about what does our retirement look like? Even if it's so far into the future, it seems crazy. I'm telling you, 10 years went by somehow, and I don't know how. So time just goes by so quickly. So it's really important to have those short and long-term goal conversations. So again, you're on the same page, but also you feel like you're building something together. So yeah, that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.